So welcome to part 6 of my tutorials on how to use Gmax to make models for Trainz railway simulator. And in this tutorial I'm going to start making a simple line side hut, and I'm going to use two textures, and they are grey planks here and corrugated iron, which is here. And this one is 256 by 128 pixels, and this one corrugated is 256 by 256 pixels, and they're both TGA files, so that's essential. And if you look back at part 2 of my tutorials, you'll see the importance of why these are important and how we're going to bring them into Gmax. So let's do that straight away. Let's open Gmax. It's very odd. It's my good old graphics card having fun. So what we're going to do, first of all, this is our blank Gmax screen, and we're going to come up to the material navigator as I demonstrated before, and we're going to go into the material editor, and we're going to start to create. We'll have a new material. There it is, standard. OK, and that's material 1, and we're going to call that, like we did before, we're going to call it planks, and we're going to make sure it's visible. And we're going to come down here to maps, and we want diffuse color, the second one down, and we'll click on that. We want it to be a bitmap because it's a TGA file. Click on OK, and then we navigate to our folder where the textures are stored, and in this one, demo for YouTube, there we are. And we're going to use planks, grey planks, there they are. And we'll open that, and that's the separate map as we see here, map 1. So that's planks. Okay, so that's the first one, and I don't like displaying the maps normally, so we've just got planks there. Now we'll do another new one. Just click on new, click on standard, click on OK, and that comes up material number 2. So that's going to be corrugated iron, and we want to be able to see it. It's going to be this one again, diffuse color. It's a bitmap again. OK, brings us back to the same folder, and it's going to be this one, corrugated iron, and there it is. Okay, so there we are. That's our material. So we've sorted that out. We've got our textures ready. We need something in order to put them on. So the line side hut, basic little hut, or line side, or just a hut for used anywhere. We'll just make a very simple structure. And before I used a box and made a solid structure, but this time I'm going to make it so you can actually see inside. So it's going to be an open fronted structure with a corrugated iron roof. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to make a couple of side walls first of all, and we'll make them out of a box. So it doesn't really matter what size box we start with, but we're going to have to alter its size here, and it's far too big at the moment, and also this grid looks far too big. So before we even amend the size of the box, let's come up to customize, grid and snap settings, home grid, and instead of 32 foot 9 inches, 1 foot. There we are, and that looks, we can see now in proportion that is so much bigger than we want. So we're going to make it, let's make it easy, let's make it 10 foot in length and 5 foot deep, and 6 foot high at the back and about 8 foot high at the front, or whatever I eventually end up with. It's pretty much flexible, whatever you want. So we come over here and we'll alter that to 10 feet, and then it's going to be 5 feet, and it's going to be no higher than 7 feet. And now we can zoom in, and we can see there that the 10 feet is in that direction going back, and the front, or what I'm calling the front, is only 5 feet. So let's swap those over straight away, 5 feet and 10 feet. Okay, so if we were making a solid mesh, a solid object without any interior, then that would do us fine. We just adjust one of these heights to 7, drop another one down to about 5, and that will give us our pitched roof. But we're going to do an interior, so this is not going to be suitable for that. It's going to give us our overall shape, but it's not how we're going to make the interior. So the interior is just going to show the wood as well, and maybe put a seat in, perhaps a window at the back. So what we'll do is we'll make this one of the walls. Now it's only going to be planking, so for one of the walls, let's make it so the width, the depth and the height is correct. The width is the whole thing, so that's too big. So planks, what, 6 inches? Let's make 6 inches, because that's going to be much more easy to work with. It's a little bit big, isn't it, for a edge on planking. Take it down to 4 feet, 4 inches rather, 3 inches perhaps. It's still pretty hefty. I think go down another inch, go down to 2 inches. We'll do a bit more on the interior. So there we are. So the actual size of the wall, that's the height, obviously the thickness of the wall, and we want to alter that so that we've got a pitch on the roof, an angle on the roof to the front. So we're going to convert our box, or rather we're going to edit the mesh of the box, come up to the modify window and go onto vertices and measure those, and they're 7 foot high, so that's fine. At the back, let's take it down to 6 foot, so at least whoever's in there has got a chance of standing up. So that gives us our basic wall, and now we just got to think about what of these panels, what are these polygons we can get rid of to try and reduce the size of it. So we can lose the edges, except for the front edge, which we'll be able to see. So if we come down to polygon and we select that one, that's going to be covered by the corrugated roof. That one's going to be covered by the back wall, and that one sits on the ground, so it doesn't really matter. So we're not going to see that. And that's pretty much the side wall done. There isn't much else to do to that. What we can do is if we look into the polygon counter to see how many polys it is. Well, it's 6 polys at the moment. So let's go back up to modify. I'm obviously speeding up now because I'm expecting you to look through those other tutorials first, so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm back up to modify, collapse all, and take it down to an editable spline. And we're just down to 3 now, which is, you know, if we've got a budget of 10,000, we want to keep this really basic. So finish that wall. Let's put some planks on it, and completely grey. Where's the texture? Well, that's because what we've got to do is add in unwrap UVWs. That's an editing function. So unwrap UVWs, and there they are, all squiff and completely hopeless. So we're going to first of all texture correct, so at least it's displaying over. It's all smeared, really weird. So we need to be able to select faces, and we're going to use the parameters again, and we're going to edit. But before we do that, we're going to click on select faces, and then select all of them, and that's indicating that everything has been selected. And let's planar the whole lot, all in one go, so that they reflect they show the texture as it should be, which is horizontal, although it's still smeared all over the place here. And once we've done that, we can then open the edit window, and it's showing all of the faces simultaneously. If we just pull back, we can see there's a number of vertices showing, so that's no good. Let's just show one face at a time, and because all these are selected, it's still showing all of those, so we just select the side one, and you can see there it's showing vertices just down the side, and it's just smeared across. And that's because although we did the planar, it planared the whole planar map down here. It did the whole lot in one go. So really what I should have done is use the planar map individually. There we are, look, you can see it's now spreading. You can actually see the pitch of the roof there. And that would be okay if we wanted horizontal planking, which we don't. We're going to go for vertical. So we're going to use the old rotate again, and just rotate, but it's all over the place. That's no good. Got to remember, come down here to our angle snap toggle. so it only moves 5 degrees at a time, and it's easy to turn around then. Oops, there we go. Although, having said that, it's now not lined up on the texture. So, quick way of doing that is these two over here should be, that's 1, that's 0, that's 0, 0 coordinates down there, bottom left, 0, 1 coordinates up there, 0, 1 coordinate here, and 0 and 1, 1 coordinate up here. So this line is 1 as far as these coordinates are concerned, and this line is 0. This line is 0, that line is 1 according to the vertical. So we've highlighted those two, and we're going to just key in 1, and they'll jump to the correct place. And then we'll put these two here, and vertically we want them at 1. There we are. And this one we want at 0. And then this one we want at, not at 0.033, whatever wacky thing it says there. Just delete all of that, put in 0, and there we are. So that's in proportion. And that's 5 feet, so that's 60 inches, so 8, well, we want about 8 planks along there. Okay, that would be 64 inches, but it doesn't really matter. So we can highlight those two there, which is going to stretch it this way, and we change vertical to 2. And there we are, there's our planks. Bring it round here, and just do this side in the same way. So first of all, select the side, planar. What else do we need? We need to rotate the whole thing 90 degrees. Make sure these are in the right place. 0 for those. 1 for that one. So the 0 line here on the vertical measure, and the 1 for those, and then move it up to 2. And that gives us our planks there, and that's the interior. We're still left with the edges that will be shown, particularly the edges. The edge will be shown, well, the only edge that's left now because we deleted the others, which is the edge that will show to the exterior. So we'll highlight that and planar it again, and again it needs to be the edge of this vertical plank, so it's obviously 90 degrees out, so we can just do that. And because it's not a distorted rectangle, it will automatically jump to those correct coordinates. But what it is, it's 4 planks all compressed down. If we click away there, you see there's actually 4 planks there, minute planks or buttons or whatever you call them. So that's too big. So what we can do is we want to shrink this down. So we can either do it by using the move button and bringing it down like that, and moving this one off a bit, and then it's just that bit of wood that's going to show. There we are. It's not too bad. Or what we can do, if we go back, let's just use the back button. If we go back, the other way we can do it is to use the scale button, but just in the vertical scale, and then make sure we've got it all selected, and then just scale it down like this, and then use our move button just to move it up somewhere else and leave a couple of wood knots in or whatever. Let's have a look at that. Well, that's okay. That's adequate for a wall, isn't it? And then because we know it's 3 inches, and we're going to center that, so we come up here to affect the pivot, center to object, align to world, and we want a 10-foot wide one, so 10 foot is going to be on the outside of this. It's going to be the measure on the outside of this, so the center is going to be half of 3 inches inside. So we want the position of this to be 9 foot 10.5 inches, and we're going to move it in the X axis, so we can see it's this one down here, and it's showing it as a minus, and that's because this side of the center point is minus, this side is plus, this side is minus, that side is plus, or the other way around. You'll soon see it. So we want it on the center line here, so we'll make that 0, so it's centered there, and we want it to be minus, sorry, not 9 foot, we want it to be minus 4 foot 10.5 inches. 10.5 inches. So that gives us our left hand wall. Now instead of making another wall like that, we want this one, the other wall, to be identical. So we just come up to here, edit, clone, okay, and we don't have to move it. All we need to do is go down here and take off the minus, and it moves it, the clone, to 4 foot 10.5 inches on the plus side. Easy. And our next stage is to put a back on there, and we'll put a window in the back wall. And the way we're going to do that is by going to look at it in the left view here, lose our polygon count, and that's showing the side. You can just about make out those. Let's make those a better colour so we can see them. Yellow. Doesn't affect the texture, it just means they're visible against that grid. So it must be the front that we need to look at. Let's get this out of the way for a moment. And there we are. And so we want a back wall which is 10 foot long by 5 foot. Was it 5 foot, 6 foot high? Was it 6 foot? I can't remember. So the way to check that, if you can't remember, is simply to collapse that down to poly and highlight the vertices on the back, and sure enough, there we are, 6 foot. So that's just to remind us. And you'll get very used to clicking away around like that. So we're going to make something new. We're going to make a spline. We're going to make a rectangular spline, and it's going to be 6 foot by 10 foot. Okay, so I just drew one out there, and it's 9 foot 9. So we want 10 foot, and we want 6 foot. Now we want it positioned, correctly positioned. So let's do that. Make sure, and if it's 6 foot high, it needs to be, the middle piece needs to be, the center piece needs to be 3 foot up. Okay, so that's in position, but it's on that line there. So what we need to do is we will eventually move it back to the back wall, move it to the back wall, but you can see already that it's going to be the correct height for the back wall. What we want to do now is to make it so that we can clone various things, or at least one thing from it. So we'll make it into an editable spline, and we'll clone it. Okay, and now we're going to shrink that editable spline down, the clone. Remember, we're only working on the clone now. And we take it down to what's that? I don't know. It's about 2 foot, a bit big for a window in a shack, isn't it? About that size, and shrink it over this way a bit. Just the x coordinate down to about that. That ought to give us, yeah, it's a little window for the back, and then we'll just move it up so we can peer out the back window. And the window isn't going to be glazed, there's going to be no glass. So come on to glass, because that's a way of using textures with opacity. So that's our back wall, very simple. And let's just make that a different colour. A nice lighter colour, and we're going to attach this one, the main back wall, to it. So we're in edit, and we're going to use the attach command down here, attach. Okay, and we know they're both on the center line, so we haven't got a sort of a bit hanging off to one side or anything like that. Attach, okay, and now we're going to extrude it 3 inches. Or was it 2? No, it's 2 inches. Extrude 2 inches. There we are. And here's looking at it from the side. So we've got it selected, so let's go back in here. We want the x coordinate to move it back towards the back of the wall. And you'll see what's happened with the extruders is we've got the window shaping. Let's have a look there. Let's zoom right in. You need to keep this visible, otherwise you can't move it. Take it back, right in, line it up. Zoom in a bit more. No, that's the maximum zoom in. So there we are, there's our back wall, 10 foot long. And we've got some unnecessary polygons there, so let's get rid of those straight away. And you can see the edge of the inside of the wall impinging on through the extruded editable spline that we created there. So what we're going to do is convert this now into a polygon. So we're going to collapse it all down to a mesh and then a poly. And select polys, and we're going to delete that edge and Let's go into wireframe so we can see the edges. We're going to delete this edge here, and this edge here, because they're all going to be hidden by the sidewalls. And of course the bottom piece is going to be hidden by the ground, so we can really reduce the number of polys that exist. Okay, so all we do then, come back to smooth and highlights, click on our textures, planks, there we are, and we're going to unwrap on the poly, we're going to unwrap the textures, and there we are. And we're just going to do the same again here. So I'm going to whip through this, I'm going to select the face, edit it. It's a little more complicated because we've got the window there. We need to make it a planar map, and we need to rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, and then we need to, you can't really use these down here because you want to maintain the proportion of your opening with the rest of the model. So we're going to align it there. You get used to doing this, it's pretty straightforward. And now instead of just moving these independently, we want to scale the whole thing rather than just move these sections independently. If I was to move them independently, for example this one, you'll see what happens. There you are, that's no good. So we've got to keep it as a whole. So we're going to scale it. Basically, just get your eye in for the scaling. So you think it's about right, you can swing it round to have a look and see how it compares with those planks there. It's still far too big. So let's go back into there and scale it along a bit more. And the more you scale it, the more times you repeat the texture. So that's pretty good. That'll do. That's quite close. We've got odd bits of wood, which is pretty typical, prototypical. And then we've got to do the other face, and we need to make sure that that is planar map, and we want to rotate it, and we need to position it. It's not so important that in a seamless texture like this, where the sides marry up, that side marries up to that side, and that end marries up to that end, that you get it positioned right. But on some of them it's really crucial. And we're just going to use our scaling again. And what we can do here is untoggle this so we can see our previous one, and just move the scaling until it's the same without even looking at our model. And there we are, and we know it's correct. Okay, so that's our back wall, and we've left the polygons inside here. Okay. And if we wanted to, we could put maybe a window glazing bars or something, just another little box in there down to that size if we wanted to. But what all I'm going to do now is put the roof on, and that will show you how far we've got. So to do the roof, very straightforward again. We just go up for a standard primitive this time. We want a box. We want it to be 5 foot this way and about, it doesn't really matter, because what we're going to do is we're going to adjust it over here in the parameters. So 5 foot front to back. Except 5 foot's not quite right, we need it a little bit wider. Let's have it, because it needs to overhang at the back and the front, if only for the drips from the rain. 5'6", and we'll make it 10 foot long. Oops, that's not the right one. It needs to be 0.3 inches. That's the thickness of the roof, and we'll make this one here the height. See what I mean about this business of length, width and height? It changes all the time. And here it is in, there's the box we've created, and that's the thickness essentially of whatever's holding up the corrugated iron. It's a little bit thick, so let's make it like the rest of it. We'll make it just 2 inches. There we are. Looks a bit better that way. And then especially on this one, we need to center the pivot in the middle there. Make sure it's correct, and then center the whole thing on the XYZ coordinates. 0, 0. The height doesn't really matter at this stage. It doesn't matter at all, because we're going to change that completely. And this then is a standard primitive, a box, and we're just going to now adjust it. And at this stage what we can do is even convert it into an editable poly. And the quick way, which I've shown you before, is to pick up the poly on the y-axis. It's showing for vertical for this one, for reasons known only to Gmax. And to select on the vertices and just jack them up, move them up. So it's just about right on the roof, and down here on the roof. And remember, by doing it this way, you keep the end polys, the front and the sides, you keep them vertical, which is always a help. Okay, so there we are. There's our little boffy with a roof on it, and we're just going to select that roof, add the corrugated iron texture, and we're going to add the command unwrap UVWs to reveal the texture, and then we're going to edit the texture so it looks like a corrugated roof. So first of all, we're going to go into edit, and you can see it's all over the place here. There's our roof. So this is why planar map is so important. So we're going to select, well in fact what we're going to do is select the whole thing. Let's start with that. We're going to select the whole thing, all the faces. Okay. So there we are, we've selected all the faces. So we get the edit window back up, and we'll do planar map, and it's reduced it to this, a rectangle. But most of the faces are not going to be looking like corrugated. All the edge faces are not going to look like corrugated. So we're going to scale it right down, zoom right in. See, we're looking at individual pixels now. Right in, down to single pixel size. I like to do this. I don't know if it drives other people crazy. My models have these sort of tiny scaled down bits of texturing, but I like it. And there we are, dirty sort of rust colour, and everything is coloured like that at the moment. So let's zoom right back, and that's all the face. So all the edges are going to be that coloured, plus the top and the bottom of the roof. So we're just going to select that face, switch off all the others, so it's only that face selected, and then planar map it again. There it is. But again, it's wrong. It's in the wrong direction. So we turn it like that, and that's wrong because the water is going down that way, and I don't think water goes uphill. So we've got to turn it right back round to have those little fixings or nails or whatever they're meant to be up on the top there. And it's a bit, the corrugated looks a bit big, so let's see if we can get away with 2 textures without it being too much of an obvious join between the 2 textures. That looks okay. That's why your textures are so important. Spend a lot of time getting your textures right. And then up inside, we've got to pick up the other face. Remember, it's been reduced right down to that along with all the other faces. And so we'll planar map it. Again, it's wrong. And also it looks a bit odd having those, well, it's certainly wrong now, having those nails or fixings there. So we know it's got to be 2 this way because that's what the other side is, so we do that. But then we want to only use part of this texture for the inside. We want just a lot of dirty rust. So let's pick up this, that's that edge there, these ones here, and vertical, that would be vertical 1, so it doesn't change. Well, let's reduce it to vertical 0.75. So we're only using that bit of the texture and repeating it again there. So it looks a little bit more like it should do. It looks more like a properly rusty shed. And the edges there are just a plain colour. So if you want to really start mucking about, I mean frankly on a little shed like that I wouldn't worry, but if you want to pick up that face and edit it, planar it, and where are we? Can be quite difficult. Let's have a good look at it. It's actually got the corrugated running this way because there's the lighter part, there's the darker part, there's the lighter part, there's the darker part. So which way do we want it to go? I'm trying to think. Well, we want to keep, so if we go that way, that's going to do us right. Yeah, I think that's going to do us right because it's, is it the lighter bit there? Anyway, first of all let's go out to 2, because that's what the roof is. And then just using our move button, let's just shrink that right the way down. So it's just using a little bit of the texture, but it's perhaps a little bit more lifelike. I'm not happy with that, but just for this demonstration we'll leave it at that, just to show you that you can bring the same, and if you want to spend lots of time getting that sorted a bit, with a bit more detail, you can. The sides and that. So there we are. It's only taken us a few minutes to knock up a shed, and with an interior, I mean, you could add a seat with a couple of uprights, and yet again using your plank texture repeatedly, using your plank texture to give the detail. You could put in a couple of window slats if you wanted to, and what else could you do with it? Well, not a lot else really. But from this point, you would then export it. Once you're happy with it all, you would then export it into a file which can then be read by Trainz, imported into Trainz by the content manager. And the way you export is you just come down to here, export, and it exports it. There's various options that you need to follow, which I'm not going to cover in this tutorial. But essentially, look, within a few minutes we've knocked out the basis of a little shed. And so I think you should have a go at something like that, and see how you get on with it. And on the next tutorial I'll start doing something a little bit more complex. So I'm going to save this shed, and I'm going to make sure it goes into, just find where they all are. There we are, and models, and where are we? Demo for YouTube, and we call it shed. Version 1.1, first copy, and we'll save that. And there we are, it's saved there, it's saved up there. Okay, so I recommend that you have a go at that, because it puts together a number of the items that I've covered in previous tutorials and actually produces something that looks like a model. So use your imagination, see what you can knock up. It's a very basic little structures, and I'll develop it more in the next tutorial. So please subscribe to my channel if you can, or if you want to, and look out for the next one.